Welcome to the final episode of the 2026 Wealth Reset Series. And there's no better way to close it out than with the man who started it all, John Washenko. John's story began with personal financial hardship and grew into a mission to help families break free from debt and take control of their future. He's not just the founder of United Financial Freedom, he's a visionary who spent decades designing real solutions that change thousands of lives. In this conversation, we explore what truly drives transformation, not just money, but mindset, purpose, and the courage to choose a better path. If you've ever felt stuck, this episode will inspire you to reset everything, starting from the inside out. Let's finish strong. Well, good morning, John. How are you today?
Good morning. Good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. We met out in Florida, and I kind of took a stab in the dark of like, I don't know if he would say yes to this, but I'm going to ask him anyways to see if he'd be on the podcast. So it really did make my day. Like, not even just making that up. It was that was kind of the cherry on top of a really, really great time together, was the chance to get to talk to you one-on-one and share this great message with people. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, we have so much to cover here, so we're just going to dive right in. So first question for you, your personal experience of financial hardship clearly shaped your life's work. So how did that early pain become the fuel for a mission that now helps thousands and thousands of families manage their money differently? How did that shape you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Yeah. So when I was a kid, my dad, he actually got me motivational speakers like Tony Robbins and
nice.
Brian Tracy and some of those guys. And so I listened to a lot of that stuff on CD and read books and that kind of stuff of their information. And you know, Tony Robbins talks about, I mean, I just love that guy. He's a great guy. But he talks about pain and pleasure. And, you know, when I was a kid, my parents lost their home in foreclosure. My dad did what everybody else does, and he made the minimum payment. And, you know, he didn't try to, pay it off early. He just, assumed everything would be good. And, but then a few years later, he lost his job working at Kennecott, one of the largest open mines in the world, and here in Utah, and ended up losing his job. And well, when you only got a few months worth of reserves, then a few months later you lose your home. You don't make the payment. That's how it goes. Notice of default, you get foreclosed on. And anyway, so as a kid, that really hit me because we were living with friends and staying around, and it was a very rough financial situation. So fast forward, I get into the mortgage industry years later, and I see that my clients are doing the same thing, and it's killing me. It's like a pit in my stomach. And so we created a biweekly company. We actually ran that for quite a while. And we're very, very successful with it. And we had a lot of clients that would just continually get on. But the thing is even though they were on the biweekly, they would still come back and refinance every 3 to 5 years, 3 to 7 years. And so it gave them a little bit better equity position, but then they eat that up in closing costs, or even if you do a limited closing cost, you're still eating up a lot of that equity and hitting the reset button going back to 30 year. And then maybe they have a lower payment if they had, low closing costs or something, but they're just hitting the 30-year reset. They don't get it. You know what I mean? Their mind wasn't changed. And so that's when, had a client who came to me, had like 760, 780 FICO, and pretty much did a rate and term, saved him a few $100 on his monthly payment. It just made a lot of sense. It was a good loan or a good rate or a good refinance. We really took him from maybe like 7.5 down to like, 5.5, 6%, and somewhere right in there. But it was a really good rate and term. I've always been really good with my clients, and anyways, took great care of him, So a few years later, he comes back to me, wants to do another refinance. Well, this time he's got like a 650 or a 680 credit score, somewhere right in there. And he's charged up a whole bunch of credit cards. He got married. And anyways, his wife was a little bit spend happy. And so the refinance that we did then, I had to put him into a 228 because we had to suck a bunch of equity out of his house.
Okay.
And we had to go clear up to like 95%. So that's back in the old days was a subprime loan, and basically put it into a 228 where you basically can grab more of that equity, leave it in a first position. Looked at some other options, but his credit score was a little bit lower, so we didn't have a first and second option that we could do to really make it make sense. Anyways, this was saving him probably around $1,200 to $1,500 a month. Well, I told him, hey, look, you've got to reapply that to the principal balance and pay that balance down so that your credit's good, and then we can get you out of that in 2 years. Okay. Well, that went in one ear and out the other. He came back and he had like a 520 credit score. No. And it was just nothing I could do. And he's like, hey, you want to, fix me up, loan doctor? And it just really hit me. I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do there. And so that made, and Tony Robbins talks about pain. Well, that was a pain point for me to where I did something about it. And we created the Money Max account, and it shows clients cause and effect. It shows them where they're going before they get there. It educates them. Man, if there's anything that it does, Andy, is it gives them financial education like you can't believe. Because when you learn about what's happening to your own money, trust me, the sync through to the brain is so much stronger than when you're reading a textbook or trying to understand some concept that you may or may not ever use, or some math equation that you may or may not ever need ever in the future again. Right. But when it's you and it's your money and you're seeing how it affects you, trust me, it's like a home run. It's right there. And clients would see, holy cow, our first version was that home equity line of credit. And, Andy, the whole concept was, hey, look, the banks are teaching us to put our money over here in our checking account, 0%, right? We've got credit cards, auto loans, student loans, mortgages between even even in the best interest rate market, 3% to 10, 20, 30%, right?
Sure. Yep.
So look, risk is already over here. You've already got it. But you're expected to deposit money into a checking account that pays you 0, or a savings account that the average is less than 1%. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, how crazy is that? Right. So the concept was, why not just merge the two, invest in yourself? Right. And I mean, if you're investing at 3 to 30%, isn't that a heck of a lot better than 0? Yeah. But now you just need a pathway to get it back, right? And so a home equity line of credit became that vehicle. And the home equity line would grab different pieces, hey, look, I'll grab that credit card, maybe I'll grab some of that auto loan or whatever, Money Max. So we created a strategy and a system that clients could utilize. And then you deposit your income against the home equity line of credit balance. Well, now your income's working for you. And then when you need it, a home equity line is just as liquid as a checking account. You can transfer it to your checking account, and if it's with the same bank, it's within seconds, and it's 100% available. So, and not only that, but you can set it up as an auto draft as well. So if you go out and swipe your debit card or you write a check, as soon as it hits the bank, it just sweeps it over from the line of credit. So banks offer sweep accounts, right? I don't know if you're familiar with them. Right. But it's usually an investment account. And what it does is, in a high yield investment money market or something like that account that is invested. And then when your checking account literally has a 0 balance. Right. And then when money or when a check is presented to the bank, they sweep it over and clear the check. So that's how a lot of big corporations run, is on a sweep account. Well, that's what it was with the home equity line of credit, but it was in reverse. And so your income was offset on your liabilities. What did that do? It accelerated the payoff like crazy because,
Mm-hmm.
and another thing that it did, Andy, is it helped clients understand really where they are.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a $400,000 mortgage, you have $5,000 in the bank. Now take out equity just for a minute. Where are you? What's your net worth? Negative 395. Well, when you deposit all of your income against a liability, you feel broke. And what did it do? It made them think differently all of a sudden. And then the dashboard with Money Max shows them cause and effect. And hey, look, when I go to buy groceries, I'm borrowing from my mortgage. It just messed with their heads.
Yeah.
And so they did better. Well, it wasn't because the Money Max had, a little more extra in it. No, it was because the client got it. All of a sudden, the light bulb turned on and they realized, hey, if I cut back a little bit, and then Money Max has that dashboard, it shows them cause and effect. So, hey, look, if I cut back a little bit, if I just switch my cell phone carrier and I save $50 a month, what did that do? Well, for anybody else, it did nothing at all. They just find another place to spend it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with Money Max, it shaved off 6 months off of their payoff. So if they went from, say 7 years down to 6.5 years, well, that made a huge difference. You know what I mean? Or if it was 6.8 and all of a sudden they felt good, they're excited. And so that's what Money Max is. It's financial education and it's guidance. And then it's also like having a financial coach. So they're telling you, hey, do this, do that. Well, that's what Money Max does as well, is it's got that action plan. Hey, execute this, pay this bill. Not only that, but another side effect is all of a sudden their credit got better. Why? Because they're paying their bills on time. They have a system, a strategy. They understand what's going on, and they're rewarded for good behaviors. And then, Money Max, one of the most beautiful things about it is it just tells you the truth. So as you spend more, the dashboard goes backwards, instead of saying, if we were at 6.5, all of a sudden, you go out and buy a new car loan. Now you're at 7.5, 8 years, but that's with buying a new car. And so clients are able to say, you know what? Do I want to do that? Yeah, I do. No, I don't. Whatever it is. Yes, I do. Hey, I need a new car. You know what I mean? That's how life goes. So they accept going from 6.5 to 7, 8 years or whatever it is. And they're like, okay, I can handle that. But that's a new car and paying off the home in 8 years versus 30 years.
Right. Yeah. It's a no-brainer. Oh my goodness. What a masterclass. Yeah. My goodness. I could barely keep up with all of the awesome insights there. Thank you so much for that. We literally jumped into the deep end, which I love. If you're not hooked by now, then I'm not sure what you're looking for here. This is all good stuff. So, my goodness, let's go back a little bit. You founded United Financial Freedom, and when you first started that, we heard about kind of your experience and you went through the mortgage industry, and I love the fact that you are. I can just tell your heart. I mean, just from the little bit that we've talked, but also just hearing your story, you sincerely care for people, and I can tell that it hurt your heart that people were coming back in worse situations. Your term loan doctor, I think probably was a little bit of a stab in the side. It's like, that's not what I'm here for, right? I'm really trying to help you get out of debt, and you're just seeing me as this kind of a Band-Aid over a much larger issue. So anyways, just wanted to kind of recap a little bit right there. I can definitely hear your heart, and I can tell that you're very, very passionate about this. So back to the United Financial Freedom, which is the company that you founded, you're still running right now. When you first started, the word financial freedom, what did that mean to you then? And then if it has changed, not sure that it has, what does it mean to you now? So I'd love to kind of hear your progression of what financial freedom means to you.
Yeah, Andy, I think that's a great question as well, because I think what financial freedom meant to me back then was getting out of debt, you know, and what it means to me now. And not only that, but financial freedom meant, hey, look, I don't have somebody, there's not a grinder, there's not a thumb on me pushing me down. If I don't make a payment, I'm going to lose my house. There's not that obligation, that pressure. And so that's what it meant to me then. But over the years and now it means more to me than that. Financial freedom is much more than that, because you can always get back in debt if you
Yeah.
don't, if you know what I mean? I mean, look, you pay off
Mhm.
your house, and then all of a sudden, if you don't do something else, so if you don't buy another house, if you don't invest, if you don't plan for the future, and you just blow everything, well, then you know, down the road, you got a pretty good chance you're just going to get back into that same cycle. So you've
Correct. Yeah.
got to, financial freedom has changed to me in,
Mhm.
okay, you're out of debt and you can stop working and nothing matters, you know, because you've
Mhm.
invested, right? You've
Right.
set yourself up for the future. And now you truly are financially free. And, you know, what that does is it gives people the ability to dream. It gives
Mm.
them the
Love that.
ability to say, hey, look, I want to, you know, do vacations. I want to go and help people. I want to do a charity thing. I want to do whatever. Well, now
Mhm.
they're not, you know, got the thumb on them, and they have
Mhm.
to just make the ends meet. They have to make this payment, or they're
Right.
going to lose everything. Well, that is in and of itself a form of bondage. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
not free to do whatever you want.
Yep.
You're beholden to, you know, debt obligations that you have, and if you don't do it, well, then you're going to lose everything. Well,
Right.
that in and of itself is forced to do what you have to do. But financial
Mhm.
freedom is, hey, look, you're out from under the thumb.
Mhm.
Everything's paid off free and clear, and that's what we show people. And
Right.
then if you continue to invest or whatever, you buy other
Mhm.
properties. I mean, I just got off the phone with, just even last week, we had a client who not only paid off one mortgage with Money Max, but she paid off five. I
Oh my
mean,
goodness.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
incredible. And, you know, I mean, we've been going at this, you know, about 20 years now.
Mhm.
So it doesn't surprise me. But I mean, five properties in the time that she would have paid one. Spoke to another guy. He's all, oh man, we paid off our house long ago. One thing I can absolutely tell you is that thing works. And I mean, I know it does because we run everything out. Biggest thing we do is financial forecasting. So,
Yeah.
and we are always looking ahead, and that's so different than looking behind. And, you know, when you think about it, what does a bank show you? What your balance is and what you've spent in the past. What
Yeah.
does any other software program show you?
Mhm.
What you've spent in the past, where it went, and what your balance is today.
Right.
Your balance today, yeah, that's important. People need to know that. But what you did in the past, does it really matter? Can you
Right.
change it? Are you going to be able to
Nope.
do anything about it?
Nope.
No. But what you can do is when you look forward, you can
Mhm.
change the projection of where you're going. If you're
Right.
going into the ditch, well, you can, you know, course correct and get back on the right path.
Right.
Whatever that path is to you, financial
Mhm.
freedom, you know, building up, you know, a big nest egg, whatever it is to you.
Right.
But Money Max says, hey, look, how do I pay the least amount of interest, pay off this debt as fast as possible, and, you know, build a lifetime? And if you
Mhm.
get onto our pro side, which is a newer
Mhm.
version,
Right.
it's how do I make a lifetime income? And that's where you
Right.
become financially free.
Right. I have to admit to you, as a serial, I'm not sure the right term for this, as an avid budgeter, right? That's how I found Money Max account. Was I was an avid budgeter. I'd used YNAB for the ever, and I just thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. And it's great for a budgeting app. It's a good thing. But it never dawned on me until I started talking to the team and getting the bigger picture that using a budgeting app, whatever that is, and trying to make decisions for the future is literally like looking in the rear view mirror and trying to make decisions for what's coming down the road. And it never dawned on me that how silly that is. No one would do that. That's unsafe. That's against the laws of nature, whatever you want to call it. It makes no sense. But yet people at best are doing that, and at worst are doing nothing, right? They're not budgeting, they're not tracking their money, they're not
Yeah.
looking forecasting wise. So to your point, I mean, the financial education, and me as an educator, I think that's another thing that I just resonate so much with this is that um there's many steps to this. Yes, there's the program. Yes, it's proven, it's guaranteed, all that kind of stuff. But there's some mindset shifts. There's some things that we have to educate people on of looking at money differently and thinking about I love the cause and effect thing that you had mentioned before. So just for what it's worth, that as a recovering budgeter, I love the way that you guys emphasize the importance of the forecasting because nothing else out there does that.
Yeah, and not only that, but even if they did do forecasting without a strategy behind the
Hmm.
forecasting, well, where are you going?
Right.
Because we even have in our new version, version 6, and we actually even have in some of our current version, we have show me the forecast with and without funds transfers. Well,
Mm.
why? Well, you know what I mean? Funds transfers are the way that we drive where you're going.
Right.
Without that guidance and without that,
Hmm.
making those financial transfers and those
Right.
moves, well, then so if you, just to give you an example, I mean, say you had $200 in discretionary income. Well, if you
Hmm.
applied that to, say, your auto loan or your mortgage, well, it's going to shave off a little bit of time. And then once you're done, well, what do you do next? Well, if you're smart and you kind of say, well, I'm going to apply that to something else or do something else, but then life always happens, no matter
Yes.
what. It
Yep.
always throws you a curveball. What do I mean by that? Well, the car breaks down. All of a
Yep.
sudden, you get a major doctor bill.
Hmm.
Life happens. Things
Right.
come out. You decide to buy a new boat. You know what I mean? I mean, look, we're enticed to spend money all the time, so it happens all the time. But now instead of creating a new plan and being super disciplined again, life happened, it kicked you in the butt, and you got off track. Well,
Hmm.
that's like a good diet. You know what I mean? It lasts as long as you're going to do it, and then you're off it. But
Hmm.
with Money Max, if you're using it constantly, you just use it. It's just going to
Right.
redirect you when you get ahead, and it just shows you cause and effect. And by understanding where you are, where you're going, it allows you to make changes or stay on track. And so
Yep.
we eventually get you where you want to go, and that is out of debt and building wealth.
Yep. Yep. Another thing that I just wanted to share, just from my personal experience of being a user of this and as an agent trying to help other people, kind of come to this realization, is the simplicity of the imagery. I think that's so important because people, if it's a foreign concept, I mean, look at Jesus, right? He broke things down in parables because that's what people understand better. The idea and the visualization of a GPS makes all the sense in the world to me. Probably on in part because I would get lost in a paper sack. So it's like, oh, I totally get that. So the idea of like, here's where I'm at, right? That's where I want to go. Please tell me the fastest way mathematically possible that I can get there and save me as much time and money as possible. Like I don't know how anybody could argue with that. It just makes all the sense in the world because either we're not planning at all, we're looking in the rearview mirror, or we're being reactive and not kind of looking ahead to things that are coming down the road. So kudos to you guys for
I,
creating the system, but also coming up with the imagery because I think it really helps to lock in what the power of it is.
yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't have said it better. When we look at what the master did, and what he says in the parables and everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody can relate to a GPS uh, versus the old system of a map. At
Mhm.
least a
Right.
lot of our generation, understands, hey, look, it was really a lot of fights in the car of
Right.
using a map, right? It was very
Yes. I remember
frustrating.
those.
Which road are we on? You know what I mean? You're
Uh-huh.
always, I mean, look, can you do it on your own? Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
But I tell you what, a GPS sure made it a heck of a lot easier, a lot less
Mhm.
stress, and you got there a lot faster. And that's
Absolutely.
that's kind of like what Money Max does, but it
Mhm.
does it financially for you.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah,
I,
I even had a client who was had a PhD or PhD in mathematics, and
okay.
just super smart guy. And just because how smart he was, he's just like, hey, you know what? I want to run this on my own. Well, he ended up running his own numbers, and we beat him by, I think it was only like a month. So really, should he have bought the program? Well, I mean, he could do it on his own there, but he did buy the program. And you know why he bought it? Because he said it was going to be too hard to recalculate. And he said, I think the reason why you beat me is because I transferred the wrong amount at the wrong time. Those were his words.
I love that. And we do love simplicity. I think that there's lots of different routes you could kind of go on that. But I find myself, and I'm sure everybody that's listening, is we're busy, right? We have a million other things on our plate. Um, One, it probably doesn't bring a lot of people energy to stare at a spreadsheet all day. I think you might be the exception to this that that you kind of get a lot of joy out of that. That's kind of brain drain for most people out there. So one, could you do it? Possibly, but you're going to go insane. And two, we just have a lot of other things that we would rather be doing with our time, and time is money. So if we can invest a very, very small portion of what we're saving to save us time and give us peace and clarity. And that's another thing I would love to get kind of your impression as the founder and the one that's been at this from the very beginning. Just some testimonials. Like what are the emotions that you hear back from clients that have been using this for a long time, that have paid off their debt, have those mortgage burning parties, which we just never even think of anymore. Like just tell us some stories of some really, really big wins that you've seen through the years.
Oh yeah, I actually have a client who emailed me just last week and said, "Here's a picture of my dashboard." And he took a screenshot of his dashboard, and it showed 360 something thousand saved potential, and actual was 367 matched. And that's how much he saved, and his house is paid off. And I think he did it. I don't know, under 10 years is what I recall. But basically, there is another story that was an earlier story when I was actually doing a lot of the selling on my own to our clients. And this one client, he got on, he was a mortgage client at first, and went through and did a refinance for him. Talked to him about Money Max, and Money Max was, another $3,500 out of pocket that he had to come up with. And anyways, he talked to his wife about it, and she was like, "No, don't do that. You're an idiot." And literally just, "No, don't do that." And so it was definitely a hard sale. And I don't like it when, husband and wife are, split on finances, that always makes it difficult.
Right.
But this particular client, I knew it was going to do a lot of good for him. We had already run the numbers. Anyways, he had like maybe a 7-year payoff. I'm like, "Man, aren't you tired of doing the refinance thing? Look, this will get you out of debt in 7 years." And his wife was like, just wouldn't have anything to do with it. I mean, literally, even though I did their loan for them, they trusted me, and I built a lot of good rapport with my clients. And anyways, she was just not having it, but he decided to go ahead and do it. Quite honestly, I was really surprised. But he decided to go ahead and get on Money Max. He got on Money Max. I kid you not, Andy, 6 months later, he calls me up and tells me this story. His wife comes to him about 6 months later and says, "So did you buy that thing, that rip off? How much did you lose on that?" And he's like, "Well, let me show you." He pulls up his account, logs in, because obviously, you get a web-based system that shows you everything.
Right.
And it showed he had like 6.5 years left to go or something. And he had paid off $40,000. $40,000.
In 6 months.
And in 6 months.
Wow.
And she goes, "Well, what would it do if I gave you some money?" I mean, that's what happens is when people see it all of a sudden. And then he paid off his home in like less than 5 years or 4 or 5 years, and completely paid off.
Right.
And she was major skeptical. "No way, don't do that." And then when she saw what he had done in 6 months, she was like throwing money at him, and they had separate finances. And she's like, "Okay, well, what if I start giving you money?" And then they ended up paying off their home. And so that's what Money Max does, is it just shows you cause and effect, and it shows you your true financial potential, what you can really do. So with the biweekly, well, what would that do? Well, it'd shave off, 2 to 5 years off of your mortgage. Well, the thing is you never even see it, though. You don't even realize it because it's behind the scenes. It's done on an amortization table that you never look at. It's helping you, but you have no idea what it did for you. But when Money Max, you stick an extra, $500 or extra income at it, it automatically reacts, and it takes you from 7 years to 5 years.
Right.
It's cause and effect. It's that emotional, holy cow, this is exciting. Now all of a sudden I've gamified my finances and I'm winning.
No, I love that. And I think you are exactly right. And there's definitely some psychology going into this, right? I mean, just we need to have some type of if we're going to make a sacrifice, we need to have some type of payoff for that. Where other ones, it's like it's really hard to continue to throw extra money at it when there's no real cause and effect or visibility into that. The other thing that I've noticed in
you nailed that. You
Yeah,
nailed that, Andy.
yeah.
That's 100% right. Because when you throw money at your mortgage,
Right.
and you all of a sudden throw an extra $200, or you throw an extra $1,000, well,
Right.
your balance went from 399 or down to whatever, 398. Well,
Right.
what did that do for you? Your payment's still the same.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You don't
Yep.
know unless you
Correct.
go through and run the math, and you're constantly running your own numbers and calculations and not getting busy with life. Well,
Mhm.
you don't know what's happened. You don't know
Yeah.
what you've done. And then you just like, hey, look, somebody offered me a lower interest rate by a quarter. Should I do it? Yeah, it's going to drop my payment. Hit the
Exactly.
reset button. Now I'm back to a 30-year mortgage. So everything, all the progress that you just made, you gave it up for,
Wiped out.
$100 a month on your monthly payment.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, don't get me started on that one. That one's a rough one. I would like to get your like just clear picture on that, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around the refinance game. But let's come back to that real quick. Your clients, our clients, are consistently reporting reducing their 30-year mortgage to 5 to 7 years. Sometimes that low, but consistently half to a third of the time. So to your point before, the guy that kind of went against the wife's judgment, not better judgment, but just judgment, they see that and they're very skeptical. So what is the most common misconception that people have about accelerating debt payoff? Because there are many. What would you say is the most common misconception about that?
So misconception about, just doing it on their own, kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah. When we say that we're going to,
or
help
compared
accelerate,
to money max.
accelerate your debt payment and your debt payoff, people's minds go to, to your point, scams and this kind of stuff. What is the common misconception that you come up against most often, and then maybe even how do you respond to that?
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's two major objections that we run into. One is price, cost, and then the other one is I can do this on my own. And as a mortgage broker for 10 years and still mortgage licensed today, I can tell you right now, people have the best intentions to pay off their home, but very few of them actually do.
Correct.
I would say probably less than 5% actually will do that and will actually be financially sound and have a game plan, and they're going to follow through and stick to it. Most of us are really, we get busy in life. We have kids, we have all kinds of things that happen. And it's easy for us to get thrown off the rails and, go down a different road. And the goals that we had, all of a sudden when, inflation creeps up and, there's a medical bill or another baby or, life happens and all of a sudden expenses go up. Well, the plan that you had put together is out the window and you're not going to do it anymore. And I'm telling you, that's just how it works. It's just like anybody who's trying to diet. Well, the diet's going to last as long as you do the plan, right? Other than that, it's going to die off. And, you can count calories and you can do certain things, but eventually it just runs its course. And with Money Max, you still have to pay your bills, right? Yep. So if you just pay your bills through Money Max and you just balance your checkbook, and if you don't balance your checkbook and you're the kind of person that, just whatever's in the bank account is in the bank account, well, you're probably going to be struggling to make that mortgage payment because if, if you're always looking at, a low balance on that bank account, you have no idea what's coming in, no idea what's going out, well, you're probably going to end up in a bad situation financially. I mean, that's usually the clients that I'm trying to help or are the ones that aren't planning ahead. And so, you do have to use Money Max though, right? I mean, if you buy a treadmill, you're not going to get anything out of it if you don't run on it.
Right. Right.
Same with Money Max. You gotta get in. You gotta log in. You gotta
Right.
execute your actions. And so if there's anything that is, a misconception out there is, maybe you can just do this on your own. Well, I've just seen a lot of people that try to do it on their own, and then, we'll check back with them in 6 months or a year or whatever, and they haven't. And we do a lot of clients, and some that are, and then we show them where they would be with us.
Correct.
And it's thousands, tens of thousands. And here's the biggest eye opener and telling tale.
Okay.
Is when you run a free savings report for a client, and all of a sudden we show them 7 years, 9 years to pay off, 5 years to pay off. If they're surprised, they couldn't do it on their own. Why?
Correct.
Because they didn't know it was possible.
Right.
If you don't know it's possible, and just because you got on a coaching appointment and you saw what's possible, doesn't mean you're going to do the actions you need to do to get you to the end result on the timeline that we're going to get you there.
Right.
And so that one's kind of, hard to understand how clients can all of a sudden think that, okay, because I know that this is possible, or I see that this is possible. And not only that, Andy, but look, when we first started this, I had to balance that we could and prove that we could do what we could do, what we were saying we could do, so many times that I finally just built a button and it balances it all out. Here's all the income that's going to come in over the next 5 to 7 years, or whatever your payoff is. Right. Here's all the expenses. Here's the taxes. Here's the insurance that you're going to pay. Here, so your escrows, here's your food and, your living expenses, everything all balanced out. Bam, you push a button, it's all there. And you can't argue with it because it's just math. And that's exactly what we do. And not only that, but that's why we can guarantee it, Andy. I've never given anyone a refund because Money Max didn't do what it said it would do.
Right.
It always does, because we forecast everything. We set up, what we do best is we're financial forecasting. We're cash flow management. And so we understand where the cash is coming from, where it needs to go, where the bills are being paid from, when you're getting paid, everything, the exact day. I know exactly the day you're going to write the last payment to the mortgage company and be done. I know that day. And we show it to you. And that's powerful because, look, if you follow the plan, this is where you'll be. But what's even more important is when you get off the plan, which you will get off, and things will change no matter what. Even if they are for the good, they're going to change. You're going to get a raise. In 5 years, you're going to get a raise, right? I mean, but inflation's creeping up. So your grocery bills are going up. Right. The one thing that we had to do and had to solve for was a multiple of variables. And that's what we've done, is we've solved for the variables. And whenever there's a variable that changes, the dashboard updates. And we guarantee the dashboard. We don't guarantee the analysis, the initial run of, hey, here's where you are today. Hopefully that'll be the same in 10 years or whenever your payoff is. No, that's not the case. And that's what everybody else offers. That's what any other plan offers, is a static, hey, here's a do-it-yourself. No, what happens when you change? I don't know. Figure it out on your own. And that's where you get off track. But if you get in the habit of Money Max will guide you to the finish line, or it'll hold your hand till you get there. I have clients who are farmers, and they're like, well, I need this tractor. Should I buy it? They put it into Money Max, and they're like, and they put in a little of what they expected from crops or what they expect from it to do. And then they make the financial decision. And I've got multiple clients that go through and in video testimonial, they'll tell you how Money Max has helped them and how it's changed their lives. And it's those things that come up down the road that Money Max just guides you through. So it's like AI, constantly giving back, but there's no ulterior motive. Money Max is there to do one thing and one thing only. Save you the most amount of money, reduce the most amount of interest, and get you out of debt as fast as possible. It looks at those things, and that's it. And look, if you throw a curveball at it, it says, okay, well, I'm not going to get there on that time. I'm going to get there a little bit longer, but it shows you cause and effect. It just tells you the truth.
I love it. I love it.
So that's what's going on.
Yeah, oh my goodness, I'm a little bit baffled. I've heard this before, but to hear it directly from you is super, super exciting for me. I wanted to just mention this, if I can find it again. You had mentioned cost versus or price versus cost, and this is something that I was on a call earlier, and we were talking about the difference. Price is a one-time thing, right? There's the price of the program, but what is the cost long term? And I think people a lot of times are very, very short-sighted, right? Would you invest 1% to save, 99%? Most people would say yes to that, but I think a lot of people are I don't know, maybe just too short-sighted to see like the long-term effects of their decisions now. And again, that's one of the beautiful things about Money Max is that it does give you that forecasting abilities. But I don't know. I guess, do you have anything to say about that of just encouraging folks of the very, very limited amount of investment upfront for the huge amount of payoff, not only to get them out of debt, but also to build wealth and then to have cash flow management. I mean, there's so many benefits past that initial price that sometimes people get hung up on. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, there's that age old saying that I kind of live by, and that is a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. You know, and as much as we try to twist our clients' arms or whatever, if we don't persuade them into showing them, like my client who bought the program, but his wife was like, no way. You know what I mean? When we look at that scenario, what made her come on board? Results, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say the proof is in the pudding. We paid off
Correct.
$2.8 billion.
Right.
We're a system that's winning. What have you done? Are you happy with where you are? Are you surprised by what we could do for you? If you are, then don't let just the cost. I mean, look, you're willing to invest in a car to get you from point A to point B. You could just walk or take the bus or ride a train, right? But you invest in a car. You're willing to put money into education. A lot of people are. Maybe not all of them are. But a lot of people are willing to put money into education, but they're not willing to invest in their own financial future. You're not willing to invest in a strategy that's going to get you not only out of debt, probably multiple times faster than you could do it on your own. Because I know I have clients that were in a PhD, and we only beat him by a couple of months, but he still bought the program. Well, why? Because he said, I'm going to have to put all this time and effort into this. And he actually took a month and a half, 2 months, and then got back to it. So I know he spent a lot of time on it, but he was in my mind, he was proving out, is it going to work? And he knew it would. At that point, he knew it would. You know what I mean? And that's why he bought it. Well, look, I learned a financial lesson a long time ago. I had a broker that I was working with, and I got into some stocks. I bought into some stocks, and it was a really good buy. Bought these stocks. It shot up like 200 and maybe 500%. Just really went up, and I was ready to sell out. And he's like, "No, don't sell. This thing's gonna go. It's going to continue going." And it was a really cool tech stock. It was a really, really exciting venture. And so I held on to it, but I did what everybody else does. And that is I went to work, and I kept working and doing my thing and doing business. And I forgot about that. Well, it started dropping. Well, I noticed maybe, back to where I was almost like break even. He's like, "Look, they had a hard run. Don't sell it." And you know what? That's what everybody sells. If you sell now, then you're going to miss out on all the gains when it comes back. Well, I did what he said, and I let it sit for another 5 years. And then I ended up selling out. Why did I let it sit for that? Not because I purposely meant to, but Andy, I just forgot about it.
Yep.
I mean, I just got busy doing other things.
Correct.
Well, when you're not focused on something, what happens? Well, whatever it's intended to do or whatever it was going to do, it's going to do, and you have no control over it because you're not focused on it. Well, I ended up pulling out a fifth of what I put into it. I was like, and I became this became my thing, Andy. This became mine. And I know somebody else said it before me. I'm more interested in the return of my money than I am the return on it. And from that time forward, I have been focused on where's my ROI? Where do I get my money back? And, that's what brought me into high cash value life insurance, and the ability to put into a policy and then pull out and get your return of investment back out is just so high, is so incredible. And you can take advantage of the negative. So in that situation, and you're focused on it. And not only that, but even if you're not focused on it, it's going to write the path that it's on. Well, in these policies, these high cash value life insurance policies, the ones that we sell are indexed products. And so what does that mean? It means if the market goes down, the floor is zero. So if the market goes down, like an 08 year where it went down 40%, 38, 39% on the S&P 500, well, the floor is zero. So that means you didn't lose anything and you still have your principal. You have cost of insurance, but that's all baked in. Do you want to pay for the cost of insurance? Is it worth it to you to have living benefits and to end up with a tax-free retirement? Okay, yes, no, and you move forward. And if you focus on work and doing your own thing, well, this is just going to take care of itself in the background. But if you're not focused on an investment and you're not watching it like a hawk in those other things in the market, and you're not doing it, buying and selling, buying low and selling high, and you're doing the reverse, which most people do, buying high and selling low, well, you end up in a negative. You know what I mean? Yeah, and so with Money Max, are you willing to invest in yourself? And if you're not, then maybe the bank should just keep taking your money from you, because I don't know what else you're going to do.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you signed on the dotted line, and you're going to pay back that bank more than likely 125 to 150% of what you borrowed.
Right.
So you borrow 400, you're going to pay back 800, maybe $900,000, somewhere in there, and if you're not willing to invest or to, get some education to help you on a path that you actually can follow and that will update with you no matter what life throws at you. Look, if you can borrow money from a neighbor to pay a bill, you can stick that in Money Max and it can help guide you through it. And I'll tell you, the best time to hold on to Money Max is when you're in debt and when you're in trouble, because it helps you to think better. It makes a sharp tool sharper. It's like sharpening that axe before you go to chop down the tree. Chopping down a tree with a dull axe is a hard job. And, sharpening that axe is just going to make you smarter, better, get you ahead faster, and get you to your destination a lot quicker than you're going to do on your own. Yeah. And time is money. And, the faster you pay off that debt that's holding you back, the more you can build up in wealth and be really, truly financially free, like we talked about.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Wow, John, so good. I would love to kind of wrap up though with just next steps. I say often, and I've heard similar things in the workshops and trainings and this kind of stuff. Knowing doesn't matter. Doing is what matters, right? You've laid it out, and you and I are very similar I think we're pretty logical people. Like we get passionate about things. It's not that we're not devoid from the emotional aspect of things, but it's like, in my logical mind, it's like if this works on a mathematical level, then there's really nothing to argue about. And I think you would agree with that, right? But again, having heard all of this and other things that maybe someone has sent you, if you don't act on that, you're just literally stuck where you're at this point, and not even just stuck, but you are funding the bank's future, not your own future. So, I guess what would be your final plea, John, to those that are listening out there that are like, okay, I'm leaning in, you piqued my curiosity here. What would you suggest that they do moving forward to take action so they're not stuck for their life just being in debt?
Yeah, Andy, we run a free savings report. What do you got to lose, right? You know what I mean? But the other thing that comes to my mind is Well, there's two things, and I don't know how much time we have left, but there's two other things that come to my mind. One is a story that I want to tell you, and the other one is it's like playing chess with a computer. How many moves are you thinking ahead when you play chess? Are you a chess player?
I am not. My son is 17 and would crush me at this point because he's watched so many YouTube videos. So I'm sure he's like 5 or 10 ahead. I'm like maybe 2 on a good day. So yes, continue your story. Y'all would crush me.
Yeah. So playing chess with a computer, and if those of you that play chess, you can dial back the computer and how many moves ahead it's thinking and what it's doing and try to beat it. It's tough, you know what I mean? But with Money Max, it's not thinking about, hey, what's my next move? All the moves are already made. It has everything. The only thing it's redoing is it's recalibrating when you throw a variable at it. You change your income, you change your spending, you buy a new car, you overspend on the credit card, you spend too much at Christmas, you do whatever it is. Money Max is reacting to that. It already has the plan all mapped out. Same with playing chess with a computer. When you play chess with a computer, it's already thought about the final move to the end. It doesn't think, hey, what's my next 5 moves? What if he does this? No, it's already done, multiple variables, maybe hundreds or thousands of variables. And then it's reacting, oh, he did this one. Now I know exactly what I'm going to do. That's what Money Max is doing. Are you out thinking it? Are you doing that? Are you so in your finances that you're going to beat Money Max? And if you are, great, God bless. Go do it. Knock yourself out. If you're not, come look at what we can get, what we can do for you. That's what I would say. And then, the other thing is, Andy, is, and this is probably one of the most important things for a client to understand. The best time to borrow or borrow money or to get a loan is not when you need it. That's the worst time. Being in banking and being a mortgage broker for many, many years, when you need money, that's the worst time to try and borrow it. And perfect example of a client who was thinking about buying Money Max and was on the fence about it. And quite honestly, I think he would have bought it just right off the bat, but he's like, John, I think I'm going to get laid off. And the thing that's so cool and powerful about this story is the client was actually going to, had saw a layoff coming. And he asked, so what happens if I buy this and I get laid off? And I said, well, that's a great question, but let me ask you a question. What if you don't buy this and you get laid off?
Wow.
And he said to me, you know what? Well, I've probably got 2 or 3 months. I might be able to scrape together three payments. And I said, okay, well, how long is it going to take you to get a job? And he said, well, I mean, I could probably get a low paying job, but I don't know if I'd be able to make my mortgage payment with that. I said, okay, well, to get a job that would replace the job you have. And he said, probably 6 months. And I said, okay, so you got 3 months of payments. So 3 months later, you get what's called an NOD, notice of default. And from there, it's pretty much downhill. And you got to make up all the back payments and everything if you're going to keep your house and if you're going to make a deal. Other than that, you're in foreclosure. They're kicking you out of your house, and that's the way it goes. And anyway, so he's like, okay. And I said, now let's look at it with Money Max. And obviously, we have a system that we just plug in, and I delete an income, and his dashboard goes red. But you know what it showed? He had 5 years until he didn't know what to do. Why? Well, because he already had a home equity line of credit in place. And guess what? You can borrow out your income, borrow out $5,000. The minimum payment on that line of credit is probably going to be like $50. You deposit that whole income back to it. Now you're paying no interest. That satisfies the payment to the bank, and you're borrowing your expenses throughout the month, spending the least amount or borrowing the least amount only as you need it. And he's got a system in place. You know what it did for him, Andy? He paid off his house. It added like maybe a year to his overall payoff. He went from like 8 years to 9 years. Paid off. No foreclosure, no bankruptcy, no 5 to 10 years renting, throwing money into somebody else's pocket. Nothing happened. No ding on his credit. Nothing. Nothing happened. But if he would have done it the other way, he would have gone through all of that foreclosure. His credit would have been trashed. You're not buying a house for another 5 to 10 years.
Right.
And if you're lucky in 5 years, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
right.
That's the results of not thinking ahead. That's the results of looking ahead. Cause and effect. Cause was, hey, he had a plan in place. You know what's so amazing about this story is it played out exactly like we planned it. He did get laid off. And 6 months later, he did get a job. And it played out exactly just like we had planned it. And he was just fine. So that's what Money Max does, is it brings clarity and foresight and financial planning. And it brings clarity to where you're going. And, you know, a plan of action that you execute that changes when life changes and just recalculates when you throw a curveball at it. And it, you know, so anyways, what have they got to lose? A free savings report. And look, if we're not blowing you away, if we don't show you something that you didn't think you could do, well, then maybe it's not worth it. If you know you can already get there on your own, then maybe you can do it on your own. But if we're surprising you and, you know, we're taking a 30-year mortgage and paying it off in 10 years or less or 12 years, and you didn't think you could get there, well, then maybe you should take a second look.
Right. So really nothing to lose except for time and money savings. I mean, that's the worst case scenario, right? So, wow.
Yeah. I mean, you're already on the hook for, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest, most likely. If you've a few $100,000 owing on a mortgage, more than likely, if you're on a 30-year mortgage, you're going to pay back that plus 87% of what you've got going there, depending on your interest rate, you know, between, I think the lowest I've seen is around 70% more. So you pay back your mortgage plus 70%. Right. The highest is, you know, actually quite a bit, maybe 2 to 3 times what you borrowed. So crazy. So if you borrowed, you know, $400,000, you could pay back 1.2. You know, and, you know, we're a minimum of, you know, $300 and something thousand, you know, so that would probably be on the best case scenario. You pay back the 400 plus another 300 to the bank. Well, you know, Money Max, if we could shave off, you know, a few $100,000 or $100,000, is that worth an investment in yourself for education and a system that actually works?
Yep. That is it. That is the mic drop moment right there. That is the final question that you need to ask yourself. Would saving hundreds of thousands of dollars and tens or dozens of years of time be worth a free appointment and a small investment in the grand scheme of things, and financial education and foresight and clarity and peace of mind, right? All of those things. I can't imagine why the answer would be no to that, right? Thank you, John. I appreciate it. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom. Thank you for your vision and for your for your heart. I mean, this all started from a crummy situation in your life, and you just wanted better for other people, and you are making that happen. And we can, you know, I love being just a small part of that. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you for your time, and have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to this powerful conversation with John Washenko, and for joining us on the 2026 Wealth Reset Series. Make sure to check out the rest of the Wealth Reset Series featuring Diana Glenn, Lynn Spencer, and Sandy Northup. Available now wherever you get your podcasts. If something in this podcast sparked hope or stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Reach out today either to myself or to the person who shared this episode to schedule your free, no-pressure, debt-free analysis. We'll show you exactly how quickly you could be out of debt and on a path towards real freedom, because you were not made to struggle. You were made to rise, to lead, and to live with freedom, financially and beyond. Let's reset your future starting now.